Morning to all of you. I'm so glad to be with you this morning. I am in my home again because of the icy conditions outside, and I am wishing you all a happy Valentine's Day. Um, for the visitors who are here, I'm Reverend Dr. Debra Haffner, the settled minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Reston, and I want you to know that you are so welcome to be with us this morning. I want to thank everyone who participated and came to the Valentine's soiree last night. It was such a great evening. So thank you to all of you who made it happen. January. January was quite a month. During today's service, we're going to reflect with you on the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol, Donald Trump's leaving office, that beautiful inauguration, the calls for unity we are hearing, and I'm going to say a little bit about the impeachment hearings. In the spirit of Valentine's Day and the UUA's 30 Days of Love campaign that ends today, we're going to be looking at these events through the reflection of our Universalist heritage, that everyone is worthy of love, and that in the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. I'm so happy this morning to be leading today's worship with our wonderful worship team. Linda Weaver, our Director of Religious Education, Cynthia Young, our Music Director, Jesse Leong, our wonderful accompanist, Beth DiPasquale, our fabulous Office Director, is running the technical side of worship this morning, and the lovely Maggie Mack is your usher in today's chat. I only have one announcement for this morning, and if you saw the flyers, you will have seen it. But if you are an official member of UUCR, please be sure to mark your calendars to stay on with us after next Sunday's worship, February 21st, for the congregational annual meeting. We need a quorum of members for that meeting, and there are some very important votes that await your input. Remember, it is our members who select our leaders, and you are the only people who can vote to change our Constitution. So please, please plan to be there. So let me take this moment to invite you to take a few deep breaths, to center yourself, and to listen as Jesse plays for us a lovely prelude, Love Will Come by Vince Guaraldi. Thank you. What a lovely way to begin our worship service. The opening words this morning are from my colleague, the Reverend Teresa Soto, and are excerpted from a piece she wrote called America Is This Freedom? The day we are in is not unprecedented entirely. America has been unjust before, has ignored both its laws and what higher law the soul can sense, that each person is a human. And as a human, it turns out that their life and their body belongs expressly to them. The mild reaction of people I would have trusted communicated clearly that they don't see danger and that I should wait until it gets worse. America, your sickness makes me sit and weep. We will rise, of course, but will it be enough? All is not lost, but some is gone. The part of society that could assume that being decent enough was enough of an expectation to keep us civil is discovering that disconnected from values, any practice can be destructive. The time to politely look away as though cruelty is merely somewhat impolite expired some time back. We must get free. Do something faithful. Do something to interrupt evil. Do not wait. Do it now. The time we have left for collecting courage and dealing in compassion is not limited. But this is still your day. Move into it in your power and your love.
Good morning. My name is Cynthia Young, and I am the music director at UUCR. Our opening hymn this morning is not in our hymnal. It's a song called Lifted in Love, written by Carl Karush and Leah Morris. Leah Morris is a DC area musician and songwriter who has been creating music videos this year and generously sharing some of them with all UU churches. The words appear in the video, so it's easy to follow along. Leah sings the first verse a cappella, then accompanies herself with the djembe. Let's join in with Leah in this beautiful opening hymn.
We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the birds, they tell us. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the trees, they tell us. We're here to be lifted in love, to listen to love as a flower raises its face to the sun. We are all one, here to be lifted in grace and love. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the sky, it tells us. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the trees, they tell us. We're here to be lifted in love, to listen to love as the children raise all their faces to the sun. We are all one, here to be lifted in grace and love. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the trees, they tell us. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the seas, they tell us. We're here to be lifted in love, to listen to love as the flower raises its face to the sun. We are all one, here to be lifted in grace and love.
Good morning. I'm Linda Weaver, the Director of Religious Education at UUCR. As we enjoy the photo of the UU Rustin chalice, you may wish to light a candle in your own home. Our chalice lighting words this morning are from One Love by the Reverend Dr. Hope Johnson in Voices from the Margin, edited by Jackie James and Reverend Mark Morrison Reed. We are one, working, eating, laughing, playing, singing, storytelling, sharing, and rejoicing, getting to know each other, taking risks, opening up, learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility, being forgiven through grace, creating the beloved community together. We are one.
In our church, we sing a covenant together every Sunday. Love is the spirit of this church. We will sing along with our new covenant video featuring our congregants and choir. The words will be in your chat box. If you are visiting us this morning for the first time, please accept this song as our blessing to you.
Now is the time for all ages, so young and old alike gather around your screens. Our story this morning is loosely based on Repairing Our Mistakes with Love by the Reverend J. Pamela Scott and the Reverend Erica A. Hewitt. On Sunday mornings around the country, Unitarian Universalist congregations light a chalice like we did this morning. The flaming chalice symbol was created by an artist named Hans Deutsch during World War II. At that time, the Unitarian Service Committee was issuing travel papers to people to help them escape from the Nazis. The group wanted a symbol to place on those papers to make them look more official and more important. They asked Hans Deutsch to create the symbol, and he drew the flaming chalice that they used. Eventually, the American Unitarian Association used this as their official symbol, the flaming chalice. And in 1961, when Universalism and Unitarianism merged, this symbol that you see here, the flaming chalice in overlapping circles, became their symbol. In the late 1970s, children in their religious education classes would make three-dimensional chalices and light them. And some children and teens brought these chalices into worship when they led services. That led to the adoption of that practice by many congregations. Now we light chalices at the beginning of our worship services, in classes, and some meetings. It reminds us of our commitment to one another and of our connection to something larger than ourselves. Today, I wanted to show you a variety of chalices from UUCR and that I found around my home. When I was looking, I found this. I wonder what I should do. I didn't break it, so should I be the one to fix it? Or Maybe I should have ignored it or hidden it, put it further back in the closet where I found it. What do you think I should do? You think I should fix it? I think so too. But how might I do that? Maybe tape or rubber bands or glue, or maybe I could chew chewing gum and stick it together with that. I know. I've heard of something called kintsugi. Kintsugi is an ancient Japanese art of repairing pottery. In kintsugi, the breaks are highlighted with gold, like in these photos. The imperfections are visible and become part of the pottery's beauty. The gold is a reminder that what was broken is now whole and has a different beauty. I wonder how that worked. I think it looks pretty good. I also wonder if something like this might work when other things break, like friendships and other relationships. Sometimes we hurt each other's feelings and it breaks the connection between us. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant or promise one another that we won't ignore it. We will try to build the relationship so that it's stronger. The work of healing is all of our jobs, no matter how old or how young we might be. When we repair our mistakes with love and with our covenant, we remember that our relationships are more beautiful once we have acknowledged hurt, asked for forgiveness, corrected our mistakes, and made a sacred promise to do better in the future. When we do this together, we can create something similar to kintsugi, a beloved community that is stronger and more beautiful than it was before.
Thank you, Linda, for that story. This is the time in our service where we invite you to share your joys and cares for yourself, your family, our community, our world. Perhaps you might want to light a candle in your own home to mark what is in your heart as we watch the candle bowl in our sanctuary. The chat box is open. Make sure you're writing to all attendees, and remember that anything you write is public. As we put up the slide of our lit candles, please enter it to a time of silence in your home. Read the chat and let each other's joys and concerns watch over you. Would you take some moments of your own quiet prayers, reflection, and meditation? Jesse will be playing for us Lie Best Traum by Franz Liszt. Please join with me in moments of prayer. Spirit of life and love, surround us this morning. Let us feel and rest into the love greater than we are and into the love of this community. Though in our homes, may we feel this community holding us, surrounding us, uplifting us. We send our prayers to all who are suffering and mourning. To our member, dear Al Carlson, mourning his wife, Eddie, who passed away about 2 weeks ago. We send love to those who are struggling with illnesses. A special prayer to Holly and her mom facing an upcoming procedure. We send prayers for the death of a friend too soon. We send prayers. We send prayers for all those who have been traumatized by what's gone on in Washington, to the congressmen and the senators and their staffs who no doubt are still facing the trauma of January 6th. And we uplift and hold those who voted to do the right thing yesterday, especially those who had to be especially brave to do it. We celebrate what is good. We celebrate last night's joyous soiree and all those who made it possible, those who worked behind the scenes, those who organized, those who shared their talents with us, those who brought joy on a dark, icy night. We hold up a 50-year marriage, and that marriage was able to be celebrated with a special song. We hold in our hearts the United States, its future, the coming days ahead, we hope, truth and reconciliation. We hold in our hearts all those who struggle with COVID and are so thankful for the scientists and the public health people who are bringing us vaccinations, and for the hope of more vaccinations, more shots in arms to come in the weeks and months ahead. And we celebrate and are thankful this Valentine's Day, this day with love, for all those who love us, and for this community where love is the spirit of this church. So may it be. Amen. And so we want to share with you before the sermon, Amanda Gorman. When I carry in my heart, when I think about January 2021, I have two primary images. One we saw playing over and over again during the impeachment hearings this week. But then there were the hopeful, beautiful images from the inauguration of President Biden and Vice President Harris. My enduring image of that day is 22-year-old poet Amanda Gorman. We thought her poem was the perfect sacred text for today's worship service. I hope you agree with the worship team that it is worth watching again. I think her words will take on new meaning this morning in light of yesterday's acquittal, but also the hope of the bipartisan majority vote for impeachment. Amanda Gorman.
When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is hours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the wind-swept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
That's the sermon, right? Last fall, as we planned the worship service for the year, I planned to do a sermon today on love, romantic love, friendship love, family love, self-love. The January 6th insurrection changed that. I knew that day and the next day that I would need to preach about that day. A feeling that actually intensified as I watched the House managers lay out their case for the impeachment of the 45th president this week. So instead today, I want to talk about love the way Professor Cornel West talks about love. Justice is what love looks like in public. The videos we have seen this week, and oh my goodness, my friends, I'm guessing you, like me, watched a lot of the news this week. The videos were actually more horrifying than the ones we watched on January 6th, if that's possible. It was beyond horrifying to know that at some moments there were only 52 steps between the senators and the insurrectionists, that there were those determined to assassinate Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi. The carnage that day was intense. So far, 7 people are dead. 140 Capitol Police were severely injured. And were it not for some of those brave police who put their bodies between the Congress people and their staffs and the insurrectionists, the carnage could have been much worse. The one piece of unity we saw this past week was the entire Senate on its feet on Friday night, offering a standing ovation for Officer Eugene Goodman. There is no doubt in my mind that the former president incited that mob violence, not just at the rally on January 6th, but for the months when he incited their hatred and propagated the big lie that the election had been stolen. January 6th will go down in history as a coup or an attempted coup on democracy. I literally felt sick as I watched TV on January 6th, watched the Capitol, those majestic buildings where I worked in my 20s, lobbied, lunched, protested, and prayed under mob attack. According to the Department of Homeland Security, January 6th is not the last we will see of the radical right wing and its violence. DHS wrote in a bulletin after the attack, quote, "We remain concerned that individuals frustrated with the existence of governmental authority and the presidential transition, as well as other perceived grievances and ideological causes fueled by false narratives, could continue to mobilize a broad range of ideologically motivated actors to incite, or commit violence." That's chilling. A new poll by the Conservative American Enterprise Institute found that not all Americans share our horror about the 6th. 3 in 10 Americans, including 39% of Republicans, believe, quote, "If elected leaders will not protect America, the people must do it themselves, even if it requires violent action." Majority of Republicans in that same poll agree, quote, "The traditional American way of life is disappearing so fast that we may have to use force to save it." My friends, that's code for white supremacy gasping for survival. But I am here today not as a political observer or even as a citizen activist. So I'm your minister. So today I want to talk about how we must respond to hate and evil with love. In a deeply divided America, we must ask ourselves, how do we build community with the 74 million Americans who voted for President Trump in November? People who may be your neighbor, your family member, your co-worker. I'm guessing we don't have too many in our congregation. But we have to begin with ourselves. We must lament the lie that America is better than the events of January 6th, or that we have nothing in common with those people. See, we need to acknowledge our own racism and white supremacy, our own sexism and patriarchy, our own heterosexism and homophobia, our own cisgenderism and transphobia, our own anti-Semitism. They're part of us too. We grew up in an air full of them. We must confess our own sins and vow to do more to unpack our own racism and white privilege and to support the BIPOC community. Our universalist history tells us that we must side with love. According to the UUA website, quote, "Side with love is an invitation and a challenge. It is an opportunity to firmly name what we are for and against, to recognize that as we seek to embody universalism, we commit to resisting oppression. Daily, we choose whether we are siding with love, freedom, liberation, reparations, integrity, or whether we're siding with the violence of white supremacy, patriarchy, ableism, and heterosexism." I've written them that they need to add anti-Semitism to that list as well. The Side with Love campaign asks us to consider as individuals and as a community hard moral questions. Quote from them, "When have I sided with love? When have I shrieked? when have I shirked from siding with love? When have I chosen the side of comfort, apathy, despair, and acquiescence instead of the side of faith, risk, sacrifice, and resistance? End quote. I add more practically, when have I not spoken out? When have I let someone get away with a sexist or a racist remark or joke? When have I been too busy to make a call, write a letter, attend a protest? I'm talking to myself as well as to you. The Poor People's Campaign is my lighthouse for love and action, and I would like to see us start a community conversation about creating a Poor People's Campaign chapter here in Reston. The Poor People's Campaign has released a 14-point Poor People's Jubilee platform for the first 100 days of the new administration and 117th Congress. Their policy priorities include comprehensive COVID-19 relief, healthcare for all, a $15 minimum wage, a federal jobs program, voting rights, civil rights, and comprehensive immigration reform. I'm going to show you a slide. You can add your own name as an endorser of the Poor People's Jubilee platform as the link on this slide. We'll also put it in the chat, and we'll put it in Monday's e-blast. It could be how you side with love today. I've added my name. Dr. Barber and Dr. Theo Harris, the heads of that campaign, write, now is the time to center the needs of those impacted by poverty and demand a policy agenda that benefits everybody. The priorities are constitutionally consistent, morally defensible, and economically sane. They come out of the lives, struggle, agency, and insights of the 140 million who live in poverty and their moral, economic, and legal allies. They embody a politics of love, justice, truth that can defeat the politics of death, heal the nation, and bring us down the path towards genuine democracy. You surely have heard the calls that we have all heard for national unity now that the inauguration is behind us. I think that calls for unity and common ground are premature. My colleague, the theologian, Reverend Dr. Miguel de la Torres, wrote this week, quote, when the middle understands stolen ground as common ground, we have a problem with a reunited states. Yes, we need to build bridges to our neighbors and families who disagree with us. We need to find ways to connect to them. Surely we need to love them. But there cannot be unity with hate and violence. As poet Amanda Gorman said this week in an interview with Michelle Obama, quote, unity without a sense of justice, equality, and fairness is just toxic mob mentality. Unity that actually moves us towards the future means that we accept our differences. We embrace them. We lean into diversity. It is not linking arms without questioning what we are linking arms for. It is unity with purpose. End quote. Do you remember when we were all in elementary school, we learned the Pledge of Allegiance? We were promised that the United States was one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What we weren't taught, at least I wasn't taught, in the words of Dr. Jonathan Holloway, the president of Rutgers University, was that those words, quote, fundamentally ignore centuries of efforts to make sure that only certain people were protected by the nation's laws. Others could be owned, beaten, separated from their families, denied their birthrights, receive substandard education, be relegated to substandard housing, and have shorter life expectancies, end quote. I wonder, what is it going to take? What more can we do as a community, as individuals, to make real the pledge of liberty and justice for all? The great Unitarian 20th century James Luther Adams wrote this about love and justice. The reign of the sustaining, commanding, transforming reality is a reign of love. A love that fulfills and goes beyond justice. A love that cares for the personal, fullest good of all. This love seizes us, transforms us, brings us into a new kind of community that provides new channels for love. That's why we're universalists. Let me end with a prayer that I offered at the Reston Community Vigil on January 7th. Some of you were there. These words are excerpted from a prayer written by my colleague, the Reverend Elizabeth Nagun. May all of us be protected. May all of us be protected from generations of violence and hate, from pandemic and sickness and fear. May we be protected not because we have earned it, but because of the generous grace of justice and spirit. And may those of us who can be protectors protect. That's us. Be pourers of tea for ourselves and others, builders of power for love for ourselves and others, reminders to breathe and eat and fight and tend, to rest and risk, so all may be protected. In our doubt and our stress, may we rest in the air and the earth and the sky. May we remember that they have seen governments come and go, despots and haters come and go. May we remember that the universe is made to hold our bones and our breath with sacredness and survival. My dear ones, let us pray together. Let us commit together. Let us work together to rededicate ourselves to create beloved community for all, one day at a time, and in all our days ahead. Happy Valentine's Day. Amen. I've chosen words from Amanda Gorman to end us tonight. It doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to form a union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. And in that spirit, my friends, in your homes, will you join Jesse in singing our postlude, America the Beautiful? The words will be in your chat box, and I'm guessing you will also find them in your hearts.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
I don't know about you, but I have tears in my eyes. Our worship service is coming to a close. We hope you will log out and go to a breakout room and a chance to be in conversation. I hope you will talk to each other about what are your commitments to helping heal the world in 2021. How will you make love public? Today is the second Sunday of the month. Our custom in our community is that the entire collection on the second Sunday of the month goes to a community agency. This one is dear to my heart. This week, the Social Justice and Action Committee is asking for your support for Rest in Pride, the new not-for-profit organization that we launched that is continuing the work of celebrating and supporting the LGBTQ community in Reston. Our support for Rest in Pride is one of the ways we show our church sides with love. Please make your contribution to our virtual collection plate to support Rest in Pride at the link on the slide, or by mailing in your check to UUCR with Pride in the memo line. If you haven't already, please use the chat room as a virtual receiving line for the staff who brought you today's service. Before we put up our last slide, Jesse plays for us one last time. Let me close by saying the words that I end with each week. My friends, go in peace. May our real service begin. I love you. Blessings.